In the dead of night, beneath the bones of an ancient cathedral, a faint whisper of history stirs. The air is heavy with centuries of dust and the faint scent of candle wax, as though the shadows themselves guard a truth too dangerous to reveal. Somewhere deep below the stone arches, hidden from the eyes of kings and popes, lies a secret so profound it could rewrite everything we know about the world. A map, but not just any map. A map older than Columbus, older than the voyages of the Age of Discovery. A map that hints at a truth long buried, a journey undertaken in silence and secrecy. The discovery begins with a locked door, sealed by iron and time. Scholars and historians have searched for it for centuries. Legends whisper of Templar knights, sworn warriors and monks bound by vows of faith, who vanished without a trace in the early 14th century. Their sudden fall from power was dramatic and absolute, a spectacle of betrayal that left the order scattered to the winds. But what if their disappearance was not an end, but a beginning? What if, before they vanished, they left behind something more dangerous than gold, more powerful than armies, something that would allow them to touch the unknown? The map lies rolled and fragile, its parchment worn by centuries, its ink faded yet strangely intact. It carries no signature, no date, only a web of intricate lines, symbols, and coordinates that defy conventional history. It is a map not just of geography, but of possibility, a silent testament to a voyage no scholar admits to knowing, a voyage that, if true, could change the way humanity understands its own past. Historians have tried to dismiss it as legend. Conspiracy theorists have claimed it as proof of hidden knowledge. But tonight, in this shadowed chamber, the map is real, and the silence surrounding it is deafening. The air feels thick with something beyond time. Curiosity, fear, and the weight of a secret that centuries have tried to bury. The candlelight flickers over the delicate script. Strange symbols dance across the parchment, some resembling coastal lines, others like ancient sigils. The edges of the map are burnt, as if someone had tried to destroy it. The mystery deepens. Why preserve it at all if it was meant to be destroyed? And why bury it beneath walls where no one would find it for hundreds of years? Outside, the cathedral stands quiet, an echo of 1,000 prayers. But beneath its foundations, history waits. This map, fragile, enigmatic, dangerous, is a doorway to something far greater. It is not just a chart of land. It is a map of a lost journey. A journey that may prove the impossible. That the Knights Templar, centuries before Columbus, crossed oceans to reach lands thought untouched by the Old World. As the candle guttered and shadows deepened, the weight of that possibility began to settle in the minds of those who gazed upon the map. It was no longer a curiosity. It was a question that would demand an answer. What secret was so dangerous it had to be erased forever? What voyage did these knights undertake in silence? And where did they go? The answer, if it exists, lies not just in history books, but in hidden chambers, coded manuscripts, and the whispers of the wind across forgotten shores. Somewhere in the silence of centuries, the truth waits. And tonight, that silence is broken. This is where our story begins. The story of a Knights Templar begins in fire and faith. Born in the shadow of the First Crusade, these warrior monks emerged not just as protectors of pilgrims, but as a force unlike any other in medieval history. They were bound by a sacred vow, sworn to defend the Holy Land and uphold a mission that was both spiritual and militant. Their armor gleamed, their banners carried the cross, and their reputation grew in whispers of devotion and fear. They were both saint and soldier, and they amassed a power that would outlast empires. By the 12th century, the order had become more than a brotherhood of warriors. They were bankers to kings, architects of fortresses, and masters of a network that spanned continents. Their wealth and influence rivaled kingdoms. Yet with great power came great suspicion. Whispers grew louder, accusations sharper. Rumors spread that the Templars held forbidden knowledge, secrets taken from Jerusalem itself, relics that could alter the fate of nations. Then came a fall. On a cold October night in 1307, King Philip IV of France moved against them with a ferocity born of fear and greed. The arrest was sudden. Hundreds of knights were seized in coordinated strikes, their banners torn down, their treasures confiscated. They were accused of heresy, blasphemy, and conspiracy. Many were tortured. Many confessed under unbearable pressure. Others disappeared without a trace. The order, once untouchable, was dissolved within years. Their grand fortresses lay abandoned. Their archives vanished. Their names faded into legend. But for all history records, some believe the Templars did not vanish entirely. Whispers told of knights who escaped, taking with them their greatest secret, a knowledge that could not be destroyed. An object, a map, a mission that had been centuries in the making. This was not simply the fall of an order. It was the closing of one chapter and the silent beginning of another. The mystery deepens when we consider what the Templars left behind. While their wealth was seized and their leaders imprisoned, certain manuscripts survived. Hidden away in monasteries, in private collections, and in forgotten corners of Europe, these documents hinted at voyages and discoveries that defied the history books. Some maps suggested knowledge of lands far beyond what was known at the time. Some writings contained strange symbols, coordinates that made no sense to ordinary scholars. Yet to those who understood the language of the order, they spoke of something extraordinary. Could it be that the Templars' disappearance was not a defeat, but a strategic retreat? That they vanished not because their enemies won, but because they were carrying something too precious to remain in sight? Something that could change the course of history? For centuries, historians have debated these questions. Many dismiss them as legend, believing the Templars died with their order. Others insist there are traces, coded references hidden in architecture, obscure manuscripts, and even in folklore passed down through generations. Across Europe, from Scotland to Portugal, from France to Jerusalem, the Templar legacy lingers like an echo that speaks of more than crusades and castles. It speaks of secrecy, of purpose, and of a hidden journey. This is where our path turns toward the unknown. The knights who vanished did not leave a simple void. They left a trail not marked on any official map, but inscribed in symbols, guarded in shadows, and preserved in silence. The trail that may lead to a revelation greater than the fall of an empire. And so we ask, what was it they were hiding? Was it a lost world, a path across uncharted seas, a destination only whispered in the dead of night? Could they have discovered something no one was ready to believe? The possibility is tantalizing, dangerous, and unsettling. For if the Templars truly carried knowledge of a voyage that predated Columbus by centuries, it would mean rewriting the story of human exploration. It would mean challenging the very foundations of history. Tonight, we stand at the edge of that possibility. As the echoes of their disappearance fade, we begin to follow the shadows they left behind. Shadows that may lead us to the truth of their mission, and to the secret maps that could prove they reached a new world long before anyone thought possible. The mystery of the knights who vanished is not just a question of history. It is a question of destiny, and it is a question we must follow to its end. Inside the Order of the Knights Templar, secrecy was not an afterthought. It was a creed. Their lives were governed by rituals as ancient as the stones of Jerusalem itself. To join was to surrender not only your life, but your will. Initiates took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They became part of a brotherhood whose purpose was cloaked in mystery. Their mission was not merely to fight, but to guard. To guard something so sacred that its knowledge could shake kingdoms and challenge the very power of the church. The Templars spoke in signs and symbols. Their language was coded, written in manuscripts that few could decipher. These were not ordinary records. They were cryptic instructions, maps within maps, guides that layered meaning in both words and imagery. To the untrained eye, these were just designs. To the initiated, they were keys to a hidden world. A world that may have stretched far beyond the Holy Land, beyond the Crusades, beyond anything history admits. This hidden knowledge was guarded with a ferocity that rivaled their martial prowess. Their commanderies, fortified houses scattered across Europe and the Levant, served as vaults of mystery. In their libraries, among sacred texts, lay codices whose origins could not be traced, manuscripts written in strange scripts, drawings of lands unknown, charts that seemed to map not only geography, but destiny. Some of these codices hinted at a path that led westward, across oceans unknown to medieval maps. Some bore symbols resembling stars and constellations, aligning with known navigation charts of the time. Others contained references to voyages that had never been recorded in any official chronicle. These fragments became whispers, a language of secrecy passed from one generation of knights to the next. The Brotherhood understood that knowledge was a weapon, that the maps they possessed were more than mere records of travel. They were tools of power. They were proof that their mission extended beyond the battlefield, that they were custodians of a truth so dangerous it could not be entrusted to the world. And so they hid it. They encoded it. They embedded it within their rituals, their architecture, their very existence. But secrecy is fragile. It depends on trust, and trust can be broken. By the early 14th century, the Templars faced enemies who feared not just their wealth, but the mystery they guarded. King Philip IV of France, deeply in debt to the order, accused them of heresy and conspiracy. His accusations were the spark that ignited the fire of their destruction. The arrests of October 1307 were swift and brutal. Knights were dragged from their beds, bound in chains, and thrown into dungeons. Commanderies were stripped bare. Archives were seized, and the order was dissolved under the weight of papal decree. Yet, some members of the order slipped away. Some found refuge in distant lands. Some took with them fragments of what they had sworn to protect. If there was a single truth that bound these escaping knights together, it was this: they were safeguarding something worth more than life itself, something that had to survive even if the order perished. This raises a chilling question. If the Templars had a mission that extended beyond their military campaigns, what was it? Was it simply a matter of faith and duty? Or was there a hidden destination, a goal that required silence and sacrifice? Could it have been a voyage guided by the maps they guarded, to a place unseen by the rest of the world? Through centuries, fragments of their secrets endured. Hidden codices reappeared in unexpected places. Symbols carved in stone, cryptic references in manuscripts, mysterious ruins scattered across Europe and beyond. Scholars have tried to decipher them. Some believe they point to Jerusalem's hidden relics. Others suspect they point to something even greater: knowledge of lands beyond the horizon, voyages that predate Columbus, maps that were never meant to be found. The idea is both tantalizing and dangerous. If true, it would mean the Templars were not just warriors of faith, but explorers who reached across oceans long before history recorded such journeys. It would mean rewriting centuries of accepted history. It would mean uncovering a truth that powerful forces have sought to bury. The Brotherhood of Secrets was not simply about preserving knowledge. It was about guarding a possibility. The possibility that the world was far larger and far older in its connections than anyone dared admit. And it is this possibility that carries us forward toward the heart of our story. For every stone carved with strange symbols, every hidden manuscript discovered in the dust of forgotten archives, every whisper of the vanished knights, all point toward a truth wrapped in secrecy, a truth that the Order of the Temple took with them into silence, a truth that remains buried beneath centuries of myth, betrayal, and war. And so we must ask again, what were they protecting? And where did they go? The answer, if it exists, will take us deeper than history books can take us. It will lead us into shadows, across oceans, and into a secret older than the Order itself. This is the path the Templars left behind. This is the trail of the Brotherhood of Secrets. And it is here that our journey continues. There are maps in the world that should not exist. Maps older than recorded history. Maps that speak of coastlines long before they were charted, of lands unknown to the cartographers of their time. These maps are more than guides for sailors. They are mysteries etched in parchment, relics of a knowledge the world has tried to forget. In the vaults of libraries, in forgotten monasteries, in the dusty collections of private scholars, there are charts that defy logic. Some bear the outlines of continents centuries before their official discovery. Others contain strange symbols, not of known languages, but of a forgotten code. To the casual eye, they are curiosities. To those who study them closely, they are fragments of something far greater, evidence that someone knew more of the world than history admits. One of the most famous examples is the Pyre Reis map, a fragment of 16th century cartography showing parts of the Americas with astonishing accuracy. Yet the origins of this knowledge remain a puzzle. How could a map from the early 1500s depict coastlines so precisely when the technology of the time should not have allowed it? Could it have been copied from something older, something hidden, lost, and preserved by those who walked in silence? There is another map, the Vinland map, which has sparked debate among historians for decades. It appears to show the coast of North America, centuries before Columbus sailed west. Skeptics call it forgery, but proponents point to details that cannot be dismissed, arguing it could be proof of voyages that predate recorded history. Whether authentic or not, the map exists in the realm of possibility. And possibility is the seed of mystery. The Templars are not often linked to these maps, at least not in the mainstream. But among those who study their history, there is a persistent whisper that the Order, with its network of castles, monasteries, and commanderies, was a repository of knowledge far beyond its time. They were not just warriors. They were guardians of information, keepers of charts that pointed not only to Jerusalem, but beyond, into lands no one had yet imagined. These maps were not merely geographical tools. They were cryptic testimonies, drawn in secrecy, hidden in plain sight. They carried layers of meaning that only the initiated could decode. They might mark places of sacred significance. They might hide routes across uncharted seas. They might even outline a voyage, a journey that history has never recorded, but which may have changed the course of the world. The very idea is dangerous. For centuries, the possession of such maps would have been a closely guarded secret, a matter worth killing for. The Templars, with their wealth and power, were the perfect custodians. But the same power that allowed them to protect these secrets also made them a threat to kings and popes. Knowledge, after all, is power, and power that exists outside control is a threat to every throne. The destruction of the order in the early 14th century was not merely a political maneuver. It was an obliteration of a brotherhood that may have held knowledge too dangerous for the world to see. Commanderies were ransacked, libraries burned, archives lost, and yet some fragments survived. Maps preserved in hidden codices, symbols carved into stone, lines drawn in ways that defy explanation. These remnants suggest that the Templars had a deeper purpose, that their downfall was not the end, but the beginning of a story written in silence. Could these maps be part of that story? Could they be the fragments of a journey undertaken in secret, a voyage across oceans to a land unknown? If so, they would not merely be artifacts. They would be proof of an untold history, a history the world has been kept from knowing. The question is not whether these maps exist. They do. The question is, what do they show, and who had the right or the will to hide them? For those who have studied them, the answer is haunting. The maps point to a destination that has been erased from history, a place so distant, so mysterious, that it does not exist in official records, a place that might explain why the Templars disappeared without a trace. This is where the story of the secret maps of the Templars begins to turn from legend into possibility. It is no longer a question of what if. It becomes a question of what did they know, and how far did they go to protect it? In this section of our journey, we must look deeper into these maps, not merely as relics of the past, but as keys to a hidden voyage. The lines on parchment are not just shapes. They are whispers from the past, clues left behind by those who dared to explore what others feared to imagine. Some maps speak of a world that is older than history itself. Others speak of voyages that would change the fate of humanity. And somewhere within these lines, there lies a truth the Templars were sworn to guard. It is a truth that begins to emerge here, in the silent ink of a map that should not exist, a map that may be the first evidence that the Knights of the Temple crossed the ocean long before the age of discovery. And it is here, in the study of those ancient maps, that our path becomes clear. The map is not just a chart of the world. It is a signpost to a mystery that demands to be followed. The journey ahead will take us further than any history book dares to go. It will take us across oceans of mystery, into the heart of secrets guarded for centuries. And it begins here with the maps that should not exist. History teaches us that Christopher Columbus discovered the New World in 1492. But what if that moment was not discovery at all? What if centuries before Columbus unfurled his sails, others had crossed the vast, uncharted Atlantic? What if the Templars, driven by a mission hidden in symbols and secrecy, had already been there? The idea is not new. Whispers of pre-Columbian contact have existed for centuries. Indigenous legends, obscure chronicles, and fragments of maps all hint at journeys lost to history. But connecting those threads to the Templars transforms speculation into something far more tantalizing. It suggests that their disappearance was not defeat, but a deliberate step into an unknown world. A voyage undertaken in silence, across oceans no sailor was meant to cross. For the Templars, the seas were not just highways of trade. They were paths to destiny. Their knowledge of navigation was exceptional for their time. They built ships capable of enduring storms and journeys of great distance. Their commanderies in coastal regions served as ports and way stations for missions beyond the known world. But this was not recorded in the history books. It was hidden, buried in the code of their rituals, and perhaps in the maps they guarded with their lives. Some historians argue that it is not impossible for the Templars to have crossed the Atlantic. After all, The medieval world was far more connected than we often imagine. There were trade routes between Europe and the Middle East, between Scandinavia and the Atlantic. Vikings had reached North America centuries earlier, and the Templars possessed knowledge drawn from diverse cultures, a secret network that spanned continents. Could they have pieced together a voyage no one else dared to attempt? Legends speak of lost expeditions, of ships that sailed west under cloaked orders, of crews that disappeared without trace. Some say these voyages were sanctioned by the Grand Master of the Order, who believed there was a mission beyond the Crusades. Others whisper of maps that pointed toward the far west, a world of unknown lands, hidden riches, and a destiny the Order had sworn to protect. The silence that followed the Templars' downfall only deepens the mystery. Their commanderies vanished, their ships disappeared, and their archives were destroyed. But traces of this hidden voyage linger. In coastal ruins, strange carvings mark places that no known European vessel had reached. In indigenous oral histories, there are stories of visitors from across the sea, arriving long before Columbus. In ancient codices, there are coordinates and symbols that align with unexplained geographical knowledge. To connect these pieces is to step into the realm of possibility and danger. For if the Templars reached the New World, it was not a discovery to be proclaimed. It was a secret to be guarded. Such knowledge would have been worth more than gold, more than armies, more than the Order itself. And so, like their most precious relics, the truth would be hidden, burned in secrecy, buried beneath stone and silence. This is the paradox of the Templar voyage. It may have been the greatest journey in history, yet remains absent from history itself. The Order vanished, leaving only fragments, maps, symbols, ruins, whispers. These fragments form the foundation of a question that drives us forward. What was their purpose? Was it faith? Was it conquest? Or was it something altogether different? A mission so profound that it required them to erase themselves from history to protect it? There are tantalizing clues. A manuscript here, a carved symbol there, a coastline drawn in astonishing detail centuries before it should have been known. These are not proofs in themselves, but they are signs that point to a possibility, that the Templars, guided by their secret maps, crossed oceans in silence, arriving in lands untouched by recorded history. And if they did, what did they find? What awaited them on those unknown shores? The answer is lost to time, but the implications are staggering. It would mean rewriting the history of exploration. It would mean acknowledging that the map of human discovery is incomplete, that the story we have been told is only part of the truth. For the Templars, such a voyage would not have been merely exploration. It would have been a fulfillment of a mission written in secrecy, a mission that connected faith to destiny, maps to memory, silence to revelation. They were not wanderers. They were seekers, seekers of something that lay beyond the known horizon. The idea remains shrouded in mystery because the evidence is fragmentary, hidden in shadows. But fragments have power, and when they're placed together, they can reveal something extraordinary. They can open the door to a history that has been closed for centuries. To follow this possibility is to follow a trail of secrets across the Atlantic, a trail that begins in the cloisters of the Templars and leads to the edge of the known world. It is a trail marked by courage, by faith, and by the unyielding desire to know. In this section of our journey, we stand at the threshold of that possibility. The maps, the manuscripts, the legends, they converge toward one question. Did the Knights of the Temple reach the New World long before Columbus set sail? If the answer is yes, it would change everything we thought we knew about history. And it is that possibility that will guide us deeper into the mystery, toward the maps, the voyages, and the secrets that may yet rewrite the story of humanity itself. The art of map-making was never just a technical skill for the Knights Templar. It was a sacred craft, a guarded discipline that combined science, art, and secrecy. To them, maps were not mere representations of the earth. They were repositories of hidden knowledge. Each line, each curve, each symbol carried meaning beyond geography. They were keys to understanding the world, and perhaps to unlocking the Order's greatest secret. Map makers of the medieval world were few, and the Templars counted among them the most skilled. Their charts were built from a blend of first-hand exploration, ancient sources, and knowledge acquired from cultures across the known world. Jerusalem had been a crossroads of empires, and the Order had access to maps and records from Byzantium, the Islamic world, and beyond. This knowledge was precious, and it was kept hidden. Not all maps were meant to be shared. Some were designed to be decoded only by those who knew the language of the Order. The process of creating a map for the Templars was almost a ritual. It began with secrecy. Cartographers worked in chambers locked against outsiders. The materials they used, parchment, inks, and pigments, were chosen not only for durability but for symbolic meaning. The placement of symbols followed codes known only to the Order. Some maps contained hidden layers, visible only under specific conditions. Others incorporated allegory, blending geography with spiritual guidance. To understand a Templar map was to be initiated into a deeper mystery. But why go to such lengths? Why make maps so enigmatic? For the Templars, maps were more than tools. They were sacred objects. They could hold directions to holy sites, routes across unknown seas, and perhaps even locations of places lost to time. If the Order had a mission beyond the Holy Land, if they had ventured into lands no one knew existed, then maps would have been essential. They were both a guide and a guarded secret. Some surviving examples suggest astonishing knowledge. There are charts that show coastlines with such accuracy it seems impossible for the time. There are depictions of places that were supposedly undiscovered for centuries. To some historians, these anomalies are proof of forgotten voyages. To others, they are puzzles meant to mislead. But for the Knights, such maps may have served as a kind of sacred covenant, directions given not just for travel, but for a destiny the Order alone understood. The secrecy surrounding Templar maps was part of a larger pattern. Knowledge in the Order was layered. The outer layer was accessible to many within the Brotherhood, but the deeper truths were preserved in ciphered charts and hidden codices. These were treasures meant to survive betrayal and war. They were the legacy the Order swore to protect, even if it meant disappearing into silence. And disappear they did. When the Order was dissolved, their maps vanished with them. Some were destroyed. Others were hidden in monasteries, buried in archives, or disguised within the architecture of churches and castles. Scholars have uncovered fragments here and there, hints of a cartographic tradition that suggests the Templars possessed knowledge far beyond their time. But the full picture remains elusive, locked away in shadows. Among the fragments that survive, certain patterns emerge. A map here, a manuscript there, symbols repeat. Lines align. Coordinates correspond to places that do not fit the accepted maps of the medieval world. These anomalies have led some researchers to believe that the Templars possessed a hidden atlas, a collection of maps that charted more than just land. That atlas may have been a record of a voyage, a journey to a world hidden from history. It is tempting to dismiss these claims, to say they are the products of imagination or conspiracy. But to do so would be to ignore the strange consistency in these anomalies. Across centuries, across continents, fragments appear that hint at a secret that the Templars carried to their graves. It is as though they left a breadcrumb trail, hidden in plain sight, for those who knew how to follow it. The question becomes, what was the purpose of these maps? Were they purely for navigation? Or were they part of something far greater? A map not only of the world, but of a mission? A mission that carried the order across oceans, into lands unrecorded in history, guided by knowledge that was not theirs to share. For the Knights, maps were a testament to a belief that the world contained mysteries worth protecting. That knowledge itself was a kind of treasure, that certain truths could not survive without secrecy. And if they did reach beyond the known world, maps would have been the silent witnesses to that journey. This is the mapmaker's legacy. It is a legacy of faith, of knowledge, and of guarded secrets. A legacy that may yet hold the key to understanding the voyage of the Templars. To follow that legacy is to follow a path into mystery. It is to peer into the mind of a brotherhood that vanished not because they were defeated, but because they chose to disappear, to keep what they knew safe, to protect the map of a journey that may have changed the course of history itself. And in that choice lies the heart of our story. For the maps of the Templars are not just charts of the world. They are maps of possibility. They are invitations to follow. There is a story hidden in stone. Across Europe, the ruins of Templar commanderies bear marks that scholars still struggle to understand. Carvings of strange symbols, alignments that correspond not to earthly landmarks, but to stars and celestial patterns. In these stones, some believe, lies the proof of a secret the order carried to its grave. A secret that may be the key to understanding why the Knights disappeared and where they went. Templar architecture was not merely functional. Every chapel, fortress, and hall was designed with purpose. Some say their structures were built to mirror sacred geometry. Others suggest they were coded with navigational information. In the shadow of towering walls and beneath vaulted ceilings, maps were hidden in plain sight, carved in relief, encoded in stone. These were maps meant to endure time, maps meant to be read by those who knew the language of the order. One example stands out. In certain Templar churches, intricate carvings show strange diagrams, concentric circles, intersecting lines, and star-like shapes. To the untrained eye, they might seem like decoration. But to those who study Templar symbolism, they may represent far more. Encoded maps, celestial charts, or coordinates pointing to distant lands. These carvings appear in places that were once strongholds of the order, suggesting that the knowledge was not an isolated secret, but a part of their very design. The Templars understood that knowledge could survive destruction if it was embedded in something enduring. Their castles and chapels became more than places of worship and defense. They became archives in stone. Within these walls, hidden maps could be preserved long after the order itself had vanished. And when their power was destroyed, those maps would survive, hidden in plain sight for centuries. There is another layer to this mystery. The carvings and symbols are not uniform. They differ from one site to another, as though each commandery was part of a larger puzzle. Some scholars believe this was intentional, that the Templars embedded pieces of a greater map across Europe. Each fragment alone might be meaningless. Together, they could reveal the path to something extraordinary. But what path? The answer is lost in the centuries of silence that followed the fall of the order. Some suggest these markers point to Jerusalem's lost relics. Others believe they mark locations across the world, destinations the Templars reached in secret. Could these stones be silent witnesses to a voyage that crossed oceans long before Columbus? Could they be a breadcrumb trail left by the order for those who would come after? Evidence is fragmentary, but persistent. Scholars have uncovered symbols carved in Templar stonework that correspond to constellations and coordinates not used in Europe at the time. In some cases, the alignments match ancient maps that show coastlines unknown to medieval cartographers. To many, these are tantalizing hints, proof that the Templars carried knowledge of lands beyond the known world. The idea that the Knights of the Temple hid maps in stone is both thrilling and dangerous. It suggests that their mission was not just about protecting Jerusalem, but about charting a course to something greater. A voyage, perhaps, that took them across the Atlantic centuries before it was thought possible. A mission that required secrecy not only in life, but in stone. For the Templars, secrecy was survival. The fall of the order was not the end of their purpose. It was the preservation of it. By embedding their maps in stone, they ensured that their knowledge could outlive them. That even if their commanderies were destroyed and their libraries burned, the truth might still endure. These carvings are silent now, but they speak to those who listen. They speak of voyages undertaken in secrecy, of maps that chart not just geography, but destiny, of an order that vanished not because it was defeated, but because it chose to hide. And the question remains, if these stones truly contain maps, what destination do they point toward? What secret did the Knights of the Temple carry into silence? To answer this, we must follow the stone, follow the fragments, the symbols, the hidden geometry. We must trace the path they mark, even if it leads us beyond the boundaries of what we know. For the map in stone is not just a clue. It is an invitation to step into the journey of the Knights themselves, a journey that may take us farther than history has ever led us before. The carvings are not merely relics of the past. They are the key to a mystery that has survived centuries of war, destruction, and silence. They are the signposts of a journey that began in faith and ended in secrecy. And they're the threshold we must cross if we are to follow the secret maps of the Templars. This is where the stone meets the map. This is where the trail of the order becomes a path into the unknown. And this is where our story moves deeper into the heart of the mystery they left behind. There's a rhythm to secrecy. And for the Knights Templar, it was embedded not just in their maps or their stones, but in their symbols, a language designed to speak across centuries. Symbols were their shield, their cipher, their covenant. Hidden in architecture, hidden in manuscripts, hidden in the patterns of their rituals, these symbols were meant to endure long after the order itself was gone. They were the silent markers of a truth the world was not yet ready to see. Templar symbolism was deliberate, layered with meaning. The cross they bore was not just a sign of faith, but a representation of the journey, the intersection of heaven and earth, of the known and the hidden. In their iconography, there are geometric forms, celestial motifs, and cryptic marks that hint at navigation and direction. To the order, such symbols were not decoration. They were a language, a map written in metaphor. Across Europe, in churches once guarded by the Templars, these symbols still survive. Carvings in stone, intricate designs in stained glass, patterns in floor tiles, all bear traces of the order's secret language. And among these symbols, some appear repeatedly. Shapes that resemble compass roses, spirals that echo celestial paths, markings that align with constellations. To those who understand their meaning, these are not random designs. They are coordinates. They are signs pointing towards something lost to time. The persistence of these symbols suggests a purpose greater than architecture alone. They hint at a deliberate encoding of knowledge that could have guided a voyage. Some scholars have proposed that these symbols were a kind of celestial map, a chart not of land but of the heavens. a map that could guide the order across oceans by the stars. If so, it would mean that the Knights of the Temple possessed navigational knowledge far beyond what is recorded for their time. There is another possibility, that these symbols were part of a map, so secret it could not be written plainly, that they were embedded in stone and hidden in ritual so that only the initiated could follow them. If true, this would explain why so many carvings appear in seemingly sacred places, why they are woven into the very fabric of Templar architecture. These were not accidental signs. They were deliberate markers, guiding those who knew the code to a destination beyond the known world. For centuries, such ideas have been dismissed as speculation. But the persistence of these symbols across Templar sites cannot be ignored. From Portugal to France, from Scotland to the ruins of Jerusalem, similar patterns appear. They form a network, not of buildings, but of meaning. A hidden cartography written in symbol and stone. A secret map that could survive the destruction of the order itself. If the Templars did hide such a map, it raises a haunting question. What was the destination? Some believe it was Jerusalem itself, the heart of their mission. Others suggest it was a place beyond, a lost land across the sea, a shore unmarked in history, reached long before Columbus set sail. This is where the line between history and possibility begins to blur. The idea is not without precedent. Across the medieval world, knowledge was guarded in code. Sacred texts were encrypted. Maps were disguised in allegory. The Templars were masters of this art. They understood that some truths could only survive if hidden, that certain voyages could only be undertaken in secrecy. That knowledge itself could be a weapon. And if these symbols are indeed part of that hidden language, then they are more than relics. They are keys. Keys to understanding the Templars' secret mission. Keys to a map that may lead to proof of a voyage lost to history. A voyage across oceans, guided by faith, secrecy, and knowledge older than the order itself. This is the weight of the Templar legacy. It is not only a legacy of courage and faith, but of silence. A silence kept not by accident, but by design. A silence written in stone, hidden in symbol, preserved in ritual. It is a silence that has endured for centuries. And it is a silence we are now beginning to hear. The symbols are the echoes of that silence. They are the voices of a brotherhood that vanished to guard a secret that may be hidden not in words, but in the geometry of their faith, not in chronicles, but in the architecture of their order, not in libraries, but in stone. To follow those symbols is to follow the Templars themselves. It is to walk the path they walked, a path of mystery, faith, and the unyielding pursuit of a truth they believed worth dying for. And the truth they sought may have been a map that led them beyond the horizon, a map that carried them to the shores of a new world. This is where the symbols become more than art. This is where they become a guide. And it is a guide we must follow if we are to understand the secret maps of the Templars. The journey continues. History remembers the Templars as warriors of the cross, guardians of Jerusalem, and masters of finance. But there is another side to their story, a side written in silence, hidden in shadows. It is the story of their greatest secret, the possibility that they were explorers, not just of faith, but of the unknown, not just of the Holy Land, but of worlds beyond. The possibility emerges when we look beyond chronicles and charters, beyond their battles and their trials. It emerges in the fragments, the maps, the symbols, the hidden carvings, left behind in stone and parchment. And among those fragments, there is a single, haunting idea that the Knights of the Temple may have undertaken a voyage no history book records. A voyage across oceans, guided by maps of secrecy, toward a world no one was meant to know. If such a voyage took place, it would have required planning of the highest order. It would have required knowledge of navigation, of winds, and of currents far beyond the reach of their contemporaries. The Templars were not naive warriors. They were scholars of the sea. They studied navigation with a devotion equal to their faith. They possessed the knowledge of the Phoenicians, the Greeks, and the Arabs, cultures that had mastered the art of maritime travel long before the Crusades. There is evidence that the order had a network of ports, watchtowers, and commanderies along the coasts of Europe and the Mediterranean. These were not random outposts. They formed a web of way stations, places where ships could be built, supplies gathered, and voyages planned. Could these outposts have been part of something greater, a hidden network for an expedition to a distant land? For centuries, historians dismissed the possibility. They insisted that transatlantic voyages before Columbus were implausible. But the evidence is persistent. From the carvings in Templar chapels to the mysterious charts discovered in ancient archives, there are clues that cannot be ignored. Some of these clues point toward knowledge of lands across the sea. Others suggest that such knowledge was deliberately hidden. The destruction of the order in 1307 may have been not only an attempt to end their power, but to bury that knowledge forever. There are even whispers in history, accounts passed down through oral tradition, of ships that vanished from European ports, of voyages that ended without record. Some scholars believe these were expeditions sanctioned by the Templars, voyages undertaken in silence, guided by charts the world was not meant to see, voyages that may have reached the New World long before Columbus. If this is true, it would change everything we think we know about exploration. It would mean rewriting history, redefining the age of discovery, and acknowledging a voyage that has been hidden in silence for over 7 centuries. The stakes of such a secret would have been immense. Knowledge of lands beyond the horizon could have altered the balance of power in Europe. It could have provided resources, alliances, and influence beyond measure. And for the Templars, sworn to guard their knowledge, such a voyage would have been more than a journey. It would have been a mission so profound that it demanded secrecy even at the cost of their existence. The destruction of the order fits this theory. It was not simply a political maneuver by King Philip IV of France. It was a purge, a calculated effort to erase a brotherhood that had grown too powerful, too knowledgeable, too dangerous. Commanderies were seized, treasures confiscated, archives burned. But if the Templars had a map of the world hidden in their care, they would have ensured it survived. They would have hidden it in a way that no invader could find, in stone, in symbol, in silence. And that is why their symbols matter, why their carvings matter, why their maps matter. They may be the fragments of a secret voyage that still lies buried beneath centuries of history. Following these fragments is not simply an academic exercise. It is a step into the heart of a mystery that has endured for centuries. It is a step toward uncovering the possibility that the Templars crossed the Atlantic long before history recorded it, that they reached a world no one else had seen, that they returned with knowledge they would protect with their lives. The question we face now is not whether the Templars possessed such knowledge. It is whether they acted on it. Did they set sail into the unknown? Did they chart a course that took them across oceans and into history's shadows? And if they did, where did they go? To answer these questions, we must look deeper at the maps, the symbols, the fragments of a story hidden in silence. We must follow the trail they left behind, even if it leads us into uncertainty. Because the journey of the Templars may not have ended with their downfall. It may have continued across seas and centuries, guided by maps no one has yet fully deciphered. This is the path we are now on, a path into the hidden voyage of the Knights Templar, a path that may take us to the heart of a mystery older than the order itself. And it is a path that begins here, with a question that still haunts history. If the Templars reached the New World before Columbus, what did they find there? The answer lies ahead. The sea has always been the keeper of secrets. Beneath its endless waves lie the whispers of voyages that history forgot. For the Knights Templar, the sea may have been not merely a highway, but a sacred threshold, a boundary between the world they knew and a world they sought to keep hidden. The idea that they crossed this threshold, that they sailed to the New World long before Columbus, is a notion that challenges the foundations of history itself. To understand how such a voyage could have happened, we must first understand what it would have meant for the Templars. Their mission was rooted in faith, but it was also bound by secrecy. Their knowledge of geography and navigation was unparalleled for their time. They studied the winds and the stars, mastered the art of maritime construction, and built ships capable of enduring storms that would have broken lesser vessels. These were not the reckless adventures of explorers. They were carefully planned expeditions, undertaken with purpose and precision. There are fragments of evidence that hint such a voyage may have been possible. Ancient maps with coastlines not known to medieval Europe, carvings in stone that align with celestial charts, manuscripts written in code. Each fragment alone is a curiosity. Together, they form a pattern that suggests knowledge of lands beyond the Atlantic. And knowledge, for the Templars, was not something to be shared lightly. If the Order did undertake such a journey, it would have been an undertaking of the highest secrecy. There would have been no public announcement, no chronicles to record it. The voyage would have been carried out in silence, under orders that only the highest rank of the Order could know. The departure of such a fleet would have left no trace in official records. Only whispers, passed down in symbols and fragments, would remain. Some scholars point to the possibility that the Templars' network of ports along the coasts of Europe was not merely for defense, but for staging such a voyage. Commanderies in Portugal, for example, were perfectly placed to launch an expedition westward. The Order had the ships, the knowledge, and the resources. What they lacked, perhaps, was a destination, or perhaps the destination was a secret they guarded even more closely than the maps. The question is not only whether they sailed, but why. What was the purpose of such a journey? Some theories suggest it was a mission of faith to find a holy land beyond Jerusalem, a place sanctified by divine providence. Others propose it was a search for knowledge, maps, relics, or ancient truths lost to time. There are even whispers that the voyage was part of a greater plan, a mission the Templars believed was written in prophecy. Whatever the reason, the stakes would have been immense. A successful voyage to the New World would have given the Order access to unknown resources, new alliances, and knowledge that could shift the balance of power in Europe. But such knowledge would also be dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could have destabilized kingdoms, challenged the authority of the Church, and rewritten history itself. For the Templars, secrecy was not a choice, it was a necessity. The destruction of the Order in 1307 was brutal and complete. Temples were razed, treasures seized, archives burned. But if the Templars had embarked on a voyage, they would have ensured its knowledge survived. They would have hidden it, in stone, in symbol, in maps disguised as art. And the destruction of the Order may have been not an end, but the final act of a mission to keep that secret safe. There are tantalizing hints scattered across centuries. Legends of ships that disappeared without a trace. Stories in indigenous cultures of visitors from across the sea, arriving long before recorded history. Maps that appear in the most unexpected places, showing coastlines with a precision that defies explanation. These hints are fragmentary, but together they form a puzzle that refuses to be ignored. Following that puzzle is the heart of the mystery. It is a journey into a story written not in chronicles, but in fragments, a story of faith, secrecy, and the uncharted sea. It is the possibility that the Templars did not vanish. They sailed away, and in doing so, they carried with them a secret map, a map that may still exist today, hidden somewhere in plain sight. If that is true, the consequences are staggering. It would mean that the history we know is incomplete, that the age of discovery began long before Columbus, that the Knights of the Temple were not only warriors, but pioneers who crossed the Atlantic centuries before the world was ready to know. To prove such a theory is no easy task. It requires piecing together fragments of maps, deciphering symbols carved in stone, and following the hidden trail of an order that took its greatest secret to the grave. But the trail exists, and those who know where to look can begin to follow it. This is the threshold we now stand before. The possibility that the Templars crossed the ocean in silence, that they reached the shores of a new world centuries before history admits, that their maps, hidden in stone and symbol, still wait to reveal the truth. The journey ahead will take us deeper into this mystery, into the heart of the secret voyage, and into the very map the Templars may have left behind. The voyage of the Knights of the Temple is no longer a question of possibility. It is a question of pursuit, and the pursuit begins here. Maps can be lost, knowledge can be erased, but legends endure. For centuries after the fall of the Templars, whispers persisted of a voyage the Order never recorded, a journey into a world beyond the reach of history. These whispers were carried in fragments, in the words of chroniclers, in the hidden carvings of ruined chapels, in the strange accuracy of maps that should not exist. They form the threads of a story that has never been fully told. The story begins not with Columbus, but with a question: what if the Knights of the Temple reached the New World first? It is a question that unsettles historians and excites treasure hunters alike. The idea is both thrilling and dangerous, for it challenges the very foundation of the Age of Discovery. If true, it would mean rewriting the map of history itself. And the evidence, though fragmentary, has persisted for centuries. Some of the strongest hints come from the maps themselves. Surviving medieval charts, some attributed to Templar sources, depict coastlines with a precision that should have been impossible. They show islands and shores long before they appeared in official records. These anomalies are not isolated. Across Europe, scholars have discovered patterns in old maps that suggest the existence of knowledge beyond the reach of medieval exploration. Could these maps have been part of a secret archive guarded by the Order? And if so, what do they point toward? Beyond maps, there are the carvings and symbols scattered across former Templar sites. These are not random decorations. They are coded signs, aligning with celestial coordinates, geographical markers, and even cryptic numerology. To decode them requires more than historical knowledge. It requires entering the language of the Order itself. It is a language built of faith, secrecy, and geometry, designed to survive centuries in silence. Some researchers believe these symbols were the key to a larger cartographic puzzle, a hidden atlas of the world, an atlas that could lead to a place lost to history. The possibility is tantalizing, that the Knights of the Temple not only mapped the world, but mapped a voyage no one was meant to follow. A voyage across the ocean to a land unknown to the medieval world. The Templars were not explorers in the conventional sense. They were guardians. Their mission was not conquest, but protection of relics, of knowledge, of a truth they believed was sacred. If they sailed to the New World, it would have been for more than discovery. It would have been a mission a mission to safeguard something beyond history. And if they did, they would have done so in secrecy, leaving no trace but fragments of maps, symbols, and stone. The secrecy of the order was absolute. When King Philip IV moved against the Templars in 1307, he sought not only their wealth, but their knowledge. The trial records speak of hidden archives and secret books. The order was accused of heresy, but perhaps the deeper threat was something far greater, the possibility that the Templars knew of lands beyond the known world. Knowledge so dangerous it had to be buried with them. What remains are fragments, pieces of charts, whispers in manuscripts, echoes in legend. These fragments have survived in the margins of history, waiting to be pieced together. Some point to the possibility of pre-Columbian voyages. Others hint at a network of way stations, secret harbors, and hidden routes. Together, they form a trail that scholars and seekers have followed for centuries. This trail is not easy to follow. It winds through the ruins of Templar chapels, through archives scattered across Europe, and through the labyrinth of legend and conspiracy. But it is a trail worth pursuing, because if the Knights of the Temple reach the New World, it would mean rewriting the story of humanity. It would mean acknowledging a journey that has been hidden for centuries. The evidence is not conclusive. It is circumstantial, but it is persistent. Across centuries, across cultures, there are traces that suggest a possibility too compelling to ignore. That the Knights of the Temple carried a secret map, a map to a land beyond the horizon. A map so precious it was worth erasing themselves to protect. To follow that possibility is to step into the heart of a mystery. It is to step into the world of the Knights of the Temple, where faith and secrecy were intertwined, where knowledge was guarded as fiercely as the cross itself. It is to follow a path that may lead not only to a hidden voyage, but to a revelation that could change our understanding of history forever. The journey is no longer a matter of speculation. It is a quest to uncover the secret maps of the Templars, a quest to follow their path across centuries and oceans. And the path leads us forward, toward the next fragment of the story, toward the next clue, toward the truth that lies beyond the map. Because the Knights of the Temple did not vanish without reason. They disappeared into a mission that may still be waiting to be found. And the key to that mission may be hidden in the maps they left behind. The Templars were masters of concealment. Their greatest victories were not won with sword and shield, but with silence. They understood that the power of knowledge lay in secrecy. And among the most closely guarded secrets of the order may have been something far greater than treasure or relics, a hidden map. A map that could have rewritten history. This map was not just a guide to lands unknown. It was a record of a journey that may have carried the Knights across the ocean centuries before Columbus. The fragments of this map survive in whispers and symbols, in coded manuscripts and carvings in stone. But if it truly existed, it would have been the culmination of a lifetime of planning, exploration, and secrecy. The making of such a map would have required knowledge beyond anything available in medieval Europe. It would have required navigation by the stars, an understanding of ocean currents, and a network of waypoints hidden across the seas. It would have demanded not only skill, but the cooperation of the entire order. This was not the work of a single man or a single voyage. It was the mission of a brotherhood. There is evidence to suggest the Templars possessed such knowledge. Within the remains of their archives, scholars have discovered charts that depict coastlines with astonishing accuracy. These charts show lands that, according to conventional history, were unknown at the time. Their existence has been dismissed by many as coincidence or error, but the pattern is persistent. Across Europe, fragments of maps exist that defy explanation. Could these fragments be pieces of a hidden atlas, a map kept secret by the Order? The secrecy of the map was absolute. The Order had a code of silence, and knowledge was shared only on a need-to-know basis. High-ranking knights may have held the key to reading the map, while the majority remained unaware. This ensured that even if the Order fell, the map could survive. It could be hidden, disguised within symbols, encoded in manuscripts, carved into stone. The destruction of the Templars in 1307 may have been not merely a political purge, but an act to erase a mission. Philip IV of France accused them of heresy, but behind the charges may have been a fear of what the Order guarded. They may have feared that the Templars possessed knowledge too dangerous to survive. Knowledge that could change the balance of power in Europe. Knowledge of a voyage across the Atlantic. The possibility that such a voyage took place is supported by more than maps and manuscripts. There are whispers and legend, stories passed down in cultures across the world. In the Americas, some indigenous traditions speak of visitors who came from across the sea long before Columbus. These stories are dismissed by many historians, but they persist, and they match the fragments left behind by the Order. The question is not whether the Templars had the knowledge to make such a voyage. The evidence suggests they did. The question is whether they acted on it. If they did, it would have been the most secret mission in history. A voyage undertaken without record, without fanfare, without the possibility of return. A voyage so dangerous that its knowledge had to be buried in silence. If the map existed, where is it now? Some believe it was destroyed with the Order. Others think it was hidden, preserved in secrecy, waiting for a future generation to decode it. The fragments we have may be the key to finding it. Symbols carved in stone, alignments in architecture, coded manuscripts. They are all pieces of a puzzle. A puzzle that could lead to the greatest discovery in history. Following this puzzle is not merely an academic pursuit. It is a quest that demands faith as well as reason. For the Knights of the Temple, faith was the foundation of their mission. Their maps were not only guides to the physical world, but to a deeper truth. The hidden map, if it exists, is more than geography. It is a map of destiny. The Templars believed in a mission that transcended their own lives. They believed that certain knowledge must be protected, even at the cost of their existence. The fall of the Order was not the end of their mission. It was the passing of it into silence. And in that silence, the map may still lie. The search for the map is a journey into the heart of mystery. It is to follow the trail of an Order that vanished under the weight of its own secrets. To follow the trail left in stone, symbol, and chart. To trace a path across centuries to a voyage that may have changed the world. This is the turning point in the story of the Knights Templar. The moment where history and possibility meet. Where the pursuit of a hidden map becomes more than a theory. It becomes a mission. A mission to uncover the secret voyage of the Templars. And the map, if it exists, will be the final revelation. But to find it, we must follow the trail they left behind. We must follow the silence. Because the map is not just a destination. It is the journey itself. And the journey is far from over. The story of a Knights Templar is not written only in chronicles and charters. It is written in silence, in ruins scattered across Europe, in carvings hidden within cathedrals, in maps that never made it to the public eye. And among those hidden traces lies a possibility so profound that it has haunted historians for centuries, that the Templars possessed a secret map, a map that guided them across the ocean to a world unknown. If true, it would mean that the history we know is incomplete, that the age of discovery began long before Columbus set sail, that an Order sworn to protect the Holy Land took a voyage across the Atlantic, guided by knowledge kept secret for centuries. This is not just speculation. It is a theory built on fragments that have survived wars, destruction, and the deliberate erasure of history. Among these fragments are maps that defy explanation, medieval charts that depict coastlines not known to their time, islands and shores appearing centuries before they were recorded. These maps are rare and often incomplete, but their precision is striking. To many historians, they are anomalies. To others, they are pieces of a larger puzzle, a puzzle pointing to a hidden voyage. Then there are the symbols, the hidden language of the Templars, carved in stone and woven into architecture. These symbols appear across Europe, in places once held by the order. Some correspond to celestial alignments. Others are geometric codes that could conceal navigational information. To decode them requires more than knowledge of history. It requires entering the mind of the order itself. This language of symbols suggests a network not of buildings, but of meaning, a network that could function as a map spread across centuries, hidden in plain sight. If this network was indeed a map, it would have been designed for secrecy. Only the initiated could follow it. And the journey it led to may have taken the Knights of the Temple far beyond Europe's shores. The idea is more than theory. It is supported by fragments of oral tradition scattered across continents. In the Americas, certain indigenous stories speak of visitors from across the sea long before the arrival of Columbus. These accounts are dismissed by mainstream history, yet they endure. They speak of strange ships, of men in armor, of knowledge and treasures brought from far away. Could these be echoes of the Templar voyage? The secrecy of such a mission would have been absolute. For the Templars, knowledge was not to be shared. It was to be guarded. The idea of a voyage to a new world would have been a matter too precious to risk revealing. It would have been protected by layers of code, hidden in symbols, and perhaps carried in memory alone. The destruction of the order may have been their final act of protection, ensuring that no record of the voyage survived unless found by those able to read the signs. If they reached the new world, what did they find there? That question is at the heart of the mystery. Some suggest they sought a new Jerusalem, a sacred land beyond the reach of history. Others propose they searched for relics, ancient knowledge, or treasures too dangerous to keep in Europe. And some whisper of something even greater, a mission that would alter the course of humanity itself. The possibility that the Knights Templar reached the Americas before Columbus changes the meaning of history. It transforms the order from warriors and monks into explorers. It transforms their mission from protection of the Holy Land into something larger, the protection of a map, a voyage, and a secret that has been hidden for centuries. The trail they left is faint. It is not marked in any single document or map, but in fragments scattered across time and space. Ruins in Europe, carvings in stone, hidden codes and manuscripts, and the lingering echoes of legend. Together, these fragments form a pattern that calls out to those willing to follow it. Following this trail is more than an academic pursuit. It is a journey into the heart of mystery itself. It is a step into the world of the Knights Templar, where faith, secrecy, and destiny intertwine, where a hidden map could have guided a voyage that history has erased, where a brotherhood vanished to guard a truth too dangerous to reveal, and the truth they guarded may still be waiting, hidden not in a single place, but in the network of symbols and maps they left behind. A truth that can only be uncovered by following the path they created, a path that begins in the stones of their chapels and leads across oceans lost to history. This is the threshold of the mystery, the point where legend meets possibility, where the question is no longer whether the Templars could have reached the New World, but whether they actually did. and whether the map they created still exists. The journey into that question begins here, in the shadows of history, in the carvings of stone, in the language of the Knights Templar. Because if they reached the New World, it would not just be a chapter in history. It would be a revelation that changes everything. And that revelation lies ahead. There are journeys that leave no trace, no record in the annals of history, no chronicle in stone, no mention in the books of kings. They exist only in fragments, in symbols, in whispers, in questions left unanswered. The voyage of the Knights Templar to a new world, if it happened, belongs to such a journey. And to follow it is to step into a story written in silence. The evidence is scattered. It comes in the form of maps that should not exist, symbols carved into stone that defy easy interpretation, and manuscripts hidden in the archives of monasteries. These fragments suggest something extraordinary, that the Templars possessed a map unlike any other. Not a map of the known world, but of a world beyond. A map that could only be read by those initiated into their secret. Such a map would have been the culmination of centuries of knowledge. The Templars were not merely knights. They were scholars, mathematicians, navigators. They studied the movements of the stars, the currents of the ocean, the winds that carried ships across seas. They had access to knowledge passed down from ancient civilizations, Phoenicians, Greeks, Arabs, whose understanding of navigation was unmatched in medieval Europe. The question is not whether they could have created such a map. The question is whether they did. And if they did, what was its purpose? Was it a guide to a holy land beyond Jerusalem? Was it a chart to relics lost to time? Or was it a map of a voyage so dangerous, so forbidden, that it had to be erased from history itself? The Templars were sworn to secrecy. Their vows bound them to silence, their rituals to protection. Knowledge was their treasure, and the map, if it existed, was their greatest possession. To reveal it would have been to endanger not only the mission, but the order itself. And so they concealed it, hiding it in symbols, encoding it in manuscripts, carving it into stone. The fall of the order in 1307 was brutal. Temples were destroyed, archives burned, treasures seized. But if the Templars carried such a map, they would have ensured it survived. Hidden, dispersed, encrypted, and perhaps, centuries later, still waiting to be found. There are tantalizing clues that such a map may have survived. Across Europe, in the ruins of Templar commanderies, in churches once held by the order, there are carvings that match celestial coordinates. There are architectural alignments that correspond to ancient star charts. There are manuscripts whose margins contain symbols no scholar has definitively deciphered. To the initiated, these may have been pieces of a greater whole, fragments of a map. Some scholars dismiss these connections as coincidence. Others see them as evidence of a hidden network. A network designed not merely to map the world, but to hide a voyage. A voyage that could have taken the Knights of the Temple across the ocean to lands unknown. Legends from indigenous cultures add another layer to the mystery. Stories of strange visitors, arriving by sea long before Columbus. Accounts of men in armor, bearing knowledge and relics from a distant land. These tales are often dismissed, but their persistence suggests something deeper. Something that connects across centuries and continents. Something that could be the echo of the Templars' hidden voyage. If the Templars reached the New World, what would they have found there? The answer is unknown, but the stakes of such a discovery would have been immense. Access to new resources, unknown lands, alliances with peoples across the sea, and with them, knowledge that could change the balance of power in Europe. Knowledge so dangerous it had to be hidden. The possibility that such a voyage took place forces us to reconsider what we know about the Templars. They were not only warriors and monks, but guardians of a secret that may have altered history itself. The hidden map they carried, if it exists, is not just a chart of geography. It is a map of destiny. Following the trail of that map is to follow the footsteps of the knights themselves, to enter their world of faith and secrecy, where the line between history and legend blurs, where the stones of their chapels speak in a language no longer understood, where the map itself may still exist, concealed in plain sight. This is the threshold of revelation, the moment when speculation becomes pursuit, when the question of whether the Templars reached the New World becomes the search for the map that could prove it. The path forward is not certain, but it is a path worth following, for the map and the truth it holds may be the greatest discovery of all. The journey continues. The mystery of the Knights Templar is not just a story of swords and faith. It is a story written in shadows, in whispers, in symbols that survive long after the stone has crumbled. And at the heart of that mystery lies one question that has endured for centuries. Did they possess a map so extraordinary, so dangerous, that it could guide them to a land beyond the known world? The possibility is as tantalizing as it is elusive. Maps in the medieval period were not merely practical tools. They were statements of power. They were expressions of knowledge and control. And the Templars, more than any other order of their time, understood the power of a map. They guarded their knowledge jealously, storing charts in secret archives, teaching navigation only to those sworn to secrecy. If the Templars had such a map, it would have been no ordinary chart. It would have been the culmination of centuries of exploration, of knowledge gathered from the far reaches of Europe and beyond. The order was connected to a network of scholars, sailors, and merchants. They had access to ancient knowledge preserved by the Greeks, Arabs, and Phoenicians, civilizations that had sailed far beyond the limits of medieval Europe. The map, if it existed, could have been a distillation of that hidden knowledge. Some scholars point to anomalies in surviving Templar maps as evidence of something extraordinary. Lines that match celestial alignments. Coastlines that appear centuries before they should have been known. Islands drawn in places no medieval sailor should have seen. These anomalies are dismissed by some as errors or coincidence. But to others, they form a pattern that points to a voyage beyond the Atlantic. The making of such a map would have been an act of devotion. It would have required secrecy, precision, and cooperation. Every detail would have been encoded, every symbol placed with purpose. For the Templars, the map would have been more than geography. It would have been faith, mission, and destiny combined. The destruction of the order in 1307 may have been the greatest test of that secrecy. Philip IV of France accused them of heresy, but behind the charges lay a deeper fear, a fear of what the Templars knew. The trial records speak of hidden archives and secret knowledge. What if the map and the voyage it represented were part of that secret? Would the destruction of the order have been an attempt to bury it forever? Some fragments hint that it might have been so. Across Europe, carvings in former Templar sites match patterns found in celestial navigation. Margins of manuscripts contain symbols no scholar has definitively decoded. These fragments are not random. They speak of a hidden language, a code designed to protect knowledge from the uninitiated. They speak of a map hidden not in a single place, but across the order itself. There are also whispers and legend that lend weight to the mystery. Stories of knights who vanished without trace. Accounts in indigenous cultures of visitors from across the sea long before Columbus. Descriptions of ships unlike any known to history. These stories are scattered, fragmentary, but their persistence suggests they are not merely fantasy. They may be echoes of a hidden voyage, a journey erased from history, but preserved in the language of legend. If such a voyage took place, it was not undertaken lightly. The stakes would have been immense. To discover a new land was to hold the key to power, knowledge, and destiny. For the Templars, it would have been a mission worthy of secrecy. A mission that, if revealed, could have altered the course of history. The question is not only whether they sailed, but what they found. Did they discover a new world? Did they bring back relics, knowledge, or treasures so powerful that they had to be hidden? Did they chart a path that has been concealed for centuries? These questions remain unanswered, but the fragments of maps, symbols, and stories suggest that the possibility cannot be ignored. Following these fragments is to step into a labyrinth of mystery. It is to walk in the footsteps of an order that vanished under the weight of its own secrets. To follow a path written in stone, in code, in silence. And to face the possibility that the greatest secret of all still lies hidden. For the Knights Templar, faith was not only in God, but in a mission. And that mission may have been written not in words, but in maps. Maps hidden across centuries, waiting for those who can read the language of the order. Maps that may lead to the greatest discovery in history. The question is whether we have the courage to follow them, to step beyond history and into the unknown, to follow the map that the Templars took to their graves. Because the voyage they may have undertaken is more than a journey. It is a testament to faith, secrecy, and destiny. And the map they may have left behind is the key to unlocking it. The search for that map continues. And with it, the greatest mystery of the Knights Templar moves closer to revelation. Secrets buried in silence are the hardest to uncover. They live not in grand libraries or royal decrees, but in fragments, in hidden symbols, scattered manuscripts, and whispers carried across centuries. The story of a Knights Templar and their possible voyage to the New World is one such secret. It exists at the edge of history, waiting for the curious to follow the trail. The evidence is not found in a single document, but in a tapestry of fragments woven across time and place. Across Europe, carvings in ruined commanderies speak a silent language. In cathedral walls, architectural alignments match celestial coordinates. In the margins of ancient manuscripts, strange symbols hint at hidden knowledge. These fragments are not mere curiosities. They are pieces of a puzzle, and together, they suggest the possibility of something extraordinary, a map hidden in plain sight. For the Templars, maps were not simply tools for navigation. They were objects of power. A map was a record of knowledge, a chart of destiny. And if the Order possessed a map to a land beyond the known world, they would have protected it with their lives. This was not an idle pursuit. It was a mission tied to the deepest purpose of the Order. The making of such a map would have required mastery. The Templars were skilled navigators, trained in astronomy, geometry, and the art of shipbuilding. They had access to knowledge preserved by the ancient civilizations of Phoenicia, Greece, and the Arab world. They knew the stars and the currents. They could read the language of the wind. If any group in medieval Europe could have plotted a course to an unknown continent, it would have been them. Yet the possibility of such a voyage raises questions that history resists answering. If they crossed the ocean before Columbus, why is there no definitive record? The answer lies in the very nature of the Templar mission: secrecy. Knowledge was guarded with a vow of silence. The map, if it existed, would have been hidden not just to protect the destination, but to protect the Order itself. When the Order was destroyed in 1307, their knowledge did not vanish entirely. It was scattered, encrypted, hidden in plain sight. Some fragments survived in the form of maps that defy explanation. Others survived as symbols carved in stone, architectural alignments, or coded manuscripts. These are not random remnants. They are the traces of a network that may have been designed to protect the secret of a voyage. There are also voices in the margins of history that add weight to the mystery. Across continents, in cultures untouched by European records, there are legends of visitors from across the sea. These stories speak of strange ships, of men in armor, of knowledge and relics brought from distant lands. They are dismissed by most historians, but their persistence across time is remarkable. Could these tales be echoes of the Templars' voyage? The implications of such a journey are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple reached the New World centuries before Columbus, they would have altered the course of history. It would mean rewriting the map of exploration, rethinking the timeline of discovery, and reconsidering the nature of the order itself. They would not simply have been warriors or monks, but pioneers of a secret age of exploration. The question then becomes, what did they find? The answer remains unknown. It may have been land, resources, relics, or knowledge, something so powerful that it had to be hidden. The destruction of the order, the burning of their archives, the erasure of their presence, all may have been part of a plan to protect that secret. Following the fragments they left is a journey into the unknown. It is to walk a path traced in stone, in code, in silence. To enter the world of the Knights Templar is to enter a world where faith, secrecy, and destiny are inseparable, where the map is not simply a chart of geography, but a guide to something far deeper. This is the heart of the mystery. To seek the map is not only to seek a voyage, it is to seek the truth of the Templars' mission, to ask why they existed, why they vanished, and what they believed they were protecting. The pursuit is not easy. It demands patience, faith, and courage. For the path is obscured by centuries of destruction, secrecy, and silence. But the fragments persist. They call out to those who will listen. They point toward a possibility too profound to ignore. If the map exists, it is more than a relic of the past. It is a testament to a mission that transcends time. It is a promise that the greatest secret of the Knights Templar has not yet been revealed. The search for that map is no longer a matter of curiosity. It is a journey of destiny, and the journey is only just beginning. There are moments in history when silence speaks louder than any record. The story of the Knights Templar is one such moment, a history shaped not only by battles fought in daylight, but by journeys hidden in darkness. Among these hidden paths lies the possibility of the greatest secret the Order ever guarded, a map. A map that could have led them to a world unknown, a voyage erased from history. The evidence for such a map is not a single discovery, but a tapestry of anomalies. Across Europe, traces appear, carved symbols in ruined chapels, strange alignments in architecture, ancient charts depicting coastlines centuries before their supposed discovery. These fragments are scattered in space and time, yet they form a pattern, a hidden network, a secret language of navigation, faith, and protection. The Templars were not ordinary knights. They were a brotherhood bound by vows of silence and guardianship. Their power was built on more than arms. It was built on knowledge. They studied geometry, astronomy, navigation. They possessed maps and charts compiled over centuries, drawing from the wisdom of Phoenicians, Greeks, and Arabs. Such knowledge could have allowed them to chart courses no one else could imagine. If they did create a map of the New World, it would have been the product of generations, a map written in symbols, encrypted in architecture, hidden in stone. It would have been a map that could only be read by the initiated. And if the map guided a voyage, that voyage would have been the most secret undertaking in history. But secrecy comes with a cost. When Philip IV of France moved to destroy the Templars in 1307, The charges of heresy concealed a deeper truth. The order was accused of crimes, but perhaps the true reason for their destruction was the fear of what they knew. The map, and the voyage it represented, may have been a truth too dangerous to survive. And so, the order was erased, their knowledge scattered. Yet fragments endured, in manuscripts hidden in monasteries, in carvings concealed in the stones of cathedrals, in patterns that align with the stars. These fragments are whispers of a language designed to endure centuries, a language that may hold the key to a map lost to time. Legends also persist. Across cultures untouched by European records, stories survive of visitors from across the sea long before Columbus. In the Americas, tales speak of men in armor arriving on strange ships, carrying knowledge and relics from afar. These legends are often dismissed, but their persistence is remarkable. Could they be the final echoes of a Templar voyage? The possibility forces us to reconsider history. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus, they were not merely guardians of faith. They were pioneers of a forgotten age of exploration. They would have transformed the Order's mission from protection of the Holy Land into the guarding of a greater secret, a voyage beyond the horizon. The stakes of such a discovery are immense. It would mean rewriting the history of exploration. It would mean acknowledging that one of history's most powerful orders may have ventured farther than any records admit. It would mean recognizing that their mission was not only of faith, but of destiny. But what did they find? That question remains unanswered. Perhaps it was land, resources, relics, or knowledge, something so powerful that it had to be hidden for centuries. Perhaps it was the proof of a truth so profound that the Order was willing to sacrifice itself to protect it. The fragments left behind, maps, carvings, coded manuscripts, are pieces of a puzzle. They are the breadcrumbs of a trail left by an order that vanished under the weight of its own secrets. Following them is a journey into the heart of a mystery where faith, secrecy, and destiny converge. To seek this map is to step beyond history and into possibility. It is to enter a world where the line between legend and truth is blurred, where the stones speak, the stars guide, and silence conceals, where the journey itself becomes the map. The search for the Templar map is no longer a question of if. It is a question of when and how. For every fragment uncovered brings us closer to an answer, and to a revelation that could change our understanding of history forever. The map, if it exists, is not merely a chart of geography. It is a map of destiny, and the voyage it represents is the greatest journey never told. The path ahead is shrouded in mystery. But one thing is certain. The map of the Templars is not lost. It waits, waiting for those who will read the language of silence, follow the signs, and continue the journey they began centuries ago. Because some secrets are not meant to be forgotten, and some journeys are never truly over. The deeper we follow the trail of the Knights Templar, the more the line between history and legend begins to blur. They were a brotherhood defined by secrecy, not merely in their actions, but in the knowledge they kept hidden. Among the most tantalizing whispers of that hidden knowledge is the possibility of a map. Not a map of kingdoms, but of worlds unseen. A map that could have led them to a land across the ocean centuries before Columbus. The story begins in fragments, scattered maps in forgotten archives, symbols carved into stone in the ruins of Templar commanderies, patterns in ancient manuscripts that defy explanation. These fragments are scattered across Europe, but together they form something extraordinary. The possibility of a network, a hidden map encrypted in stone and scripture. For the Knights of the Temple, maps were more than guides. They were sacred objects, charts of faith, power, and destiny. The order had the knowledge, the skill, and the resources to create such a map. They studied astronomy and geometry. They trained in navigation, learning the language of the stars and the seas. Their connections spanned continents, giving them access to knowledge preserved by Phoenicians, Greeks, and Arabs. If they had created such a map, it would have been crafted with care beyond measure. Every detail would have been encrypted. Every mark would have held meaning. This map would have been designed to survive centuries of destruction, hidden from the eyes of the uninitiated. For the Templars, the map would have been a sacred mission, a mission not merely of exploration, but of preservation. The destruction of the order in 1307 may not have been the end of their story, but a deliberate attempt to protect what they guarded most fiercely. Philip IV of France accused them of heresy, but perhaps behind those charges lay fear of what they possessed. The map, and the voyage it represented, may have been that secret. To erase the order was to erase the knowledge they kept. Yet fragments survived. In the ruins of commanderies, in carvings hidden deep within cathedrals, in manuscripts whose margins hold strange symbols. These are not random marks. They are clues, part of a language of secrecy, a language that could point to a map lost to time. And if this map existed, it would have been the most closely guarded secret in history. Legends persist that may hint at its existence. Across continents, stories survive of visitors who came across the sea long before Columbus. In the Americas, certain traditions speak of men in armor, strange ships, and knowledge brought from afar. These tales are dismissed as myth by many scholars, but their persistence suggests there is more than coincidence. Could these be the faint echoes of a Templar voyage? The implications of such a voyage are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the Atlantic, they would have changed the course of history. They would not merely have been warriors or monks, but explorers of a hidden age. Their mission would have become something far greater, the protection of a journey that could alter humanity's understanding of itself. The question then becomes, what did they find? The answer remains unknown. Perhaps land, perhaps treasures, perhaps knowledge so profound it had to be hidden for centuries. The destruction of the order, the erasure of their archives, the dismantling of their commanderies, all may have been part of a plan to protect that knowledge. Following the traces they left is an act of faith. It is a step into a labyrinth of mystery where the boundaries of history dissolve. To enter that labyrinth is to enter the world of the Templars, where faith, secrecy, and destiny are one. Where a map is not merely a tool, but a testament to a mission that may have spanned oceans and centuries. The pursuit of this map is not simply a search for a voyage. It is a search for truth. It is a challenge to what we think we know about history. For if the Knights Templar reached the New World before Columbus, everything changes. The order itself would become not only guardians of the Holy Land, but pioneers of a forgotten chapter of human history. The map, if it exists, is not just a piece of parchment. It is a legacy, a promise written in the language of faith and secrecy. A map that may still be hidden somewhere, waiting for those who can read the signs. To follow that path is to follow the journey of the Knights themselves, to step beyond the edge of history and into possibility, to enter a world where silence is as meaningful as speech, where faith is as powerful as discovery. The journey is far from over. The map, and the secret it holds, still calls, and the Knights of the Temple may yet speak again. History is shaped as much by what is hidden as by what is revealed. And for the Knights Templar, hiding was a sacred art. Their story is not written solely in chronicles or in battles fought, but in silence, silence that may conceal one of the greatest mysteries of all time, a map. Not a simple chart, but a sacred guide, a map that may have led them across the ocean into a land unseen by Europe for centuries. The evidence is subtle, yet persistent. Across Europe, ruins of Templar commanderies hold carvings whose meanings elude scholars. In cathedrals once controlled by the order, architectural alignments match ancient star charts. Margins of forgotten manuscripts hold cryptic symbols that resist translation. These fragments, scattered across time and space, hint at something extraordinary, a hidden map encrypted in stone and memory. For the Knights, maps were more than tools. They were treasures, guarded with devotion. The Order had the knowledge to create a map unlike any other. They studied geometry, astronomy, and navigation. They inherited knowledge preserved by ancient civilizations. Phoenicians who sailed beyond known seas, Greeks who charted distant horizons, Arabs who mapped the heavens. This was a brotherhood equipped with the means to dream of journeys others could not imagine. If such a map existed, it would have been a work of devotion and secrecy. Every line, every symbol, every mark would have been placed with purpose. It would have been encrypted, hidden in layers of meaning. To reveal, it would have been to reveal a mission too dangerous to risk. And so, if the Templars did cross the Atlantic, the map would have been their most precious secret. The destruction of the Order in 1307 may have been more than a political purge. It may have been a deliberate attempt to bury the knowledge they guarded. The charges of heresy brought against them were followed by the seizure of their assets, the burning of manuscripts, the erasure of their existence. But if the map survived, it would have been hidden in the shadows, scattered across centuries and continents. Clues to its existence survive in strange fragments. Carvings in stone that match celestial coordinates. Manuscripts with coded diagrams. Patterns that repeat across distant sites. These are not random anomalies. They are pieces of a puzzle, and the puzzle hints at a journey erased from history. Legends add another layer to the mystery. Across cultures untouched by European records, tales survive of visitors from across the sea long before Columbus. In the Americas, these tales speak of men in armor, strange ships, and knowledge brought from afar. These stories persist despite centuries of skepticism. Could they be the echoes of a Templar voyage? Could they be fragments of memory that survived erasure? The implications are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the ocean before Columbus, history must be rewritten. They would not only have been protectors of the Holy Land, but explorers of a hidden world. Their mission would have extended beyond the Crusades into a secret age of discovery, a voyage of faith, secrecy, and destiny. The question remains, what did they find? The answer is lost to time. Perhaps it was land, perhaps knowledge, perhaps relics so dangerous that they had to be hidden. The destruction of the Order may have been their final act of protection, ensuring the map and the voyage it represented remained secret. To follow the trail of the Templars is to walk a path through mystery itself. It is to enter a world where faith and secrecy are inseparable, where the line between history and legend disappears, where the map is not merely a tool, but a testament to a mission that may have spanned centuries and oceans. The search for this map is no longer a question of curiosity. It is a journey of destiny. For if such a voyage took place, it changes everything we know about exploration, about history, and about the Knights Templar themselves. The map, if it exists, is more than a relic of the past. It is a promise, a testament to faith, to secrecy, and to a mission written in silence. A map that waits to be found by those who can read its language. To seek it is to step beyond history and into possibility. To follow the signs left behind is to walk in the footsteps of an order that vanished, but whose mission may still be alive. Because some journeys are not finished, some secrets are not lost. The map of the Knights Templar and the voyage it represents may still lie hidden, and finding it would not only rewrite history, it would reveal a truth long buried in silence. The search continues. There is a silence that speaks louder than words. For the Knights Templar, silence was sacred, a shield to protect their knowledge and a weapon to guard their mission. Their history is written not only in chronicles of battles and vows, but in absence, the absence of proof, the erasure of records, the disappearance of an order. Yet that silence may conceal one of the most profound secrets of all, a map. A map that could have guided them to a world unseen, a voyage erased from the history books. The traces of this possibility lie scattered across centuries. Hidden carvings in ruined chapels, mysterious alignments in architecture, enigmatic symbols in manuscript margins. Each fragment tells a part of story, and together they form something extraordinary, a puzzle that points toward a hidden map, a map encrypted in faith, stone, and memory. For the Knights of the Temple, a map was more than a navigational tool. It was a sacred object, a testament to knowledge and destiny. The order was unparalleled in their mastery of astronomy, geometry, and navigation. Their reach extended across Europe and beyond, granting them access to knowledge preserved by the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Arabs, civilizations that had crossed seas unknown to medieval Europe. The possibility that they created a map of the New World is not beyond imagination. It is in many ways a possibility rooted in their very nature. Such a map would not have been made lightly. Every line and symbol would have carried meaning, encrypted to protect the path it charted. It would have been hidden not in one place, but across their order, encrypted in architecture, stone, and scripture. To reveal it would have been to endanger everything they had sworn to protect. For the Templars, the map would have been a mission written in secrecy. The fall of the order in 1307 was not merely the result of politics. It was the obliteration of a brotherhood that guarded knowledge too dangerous to reveal. Philip IV of France accused them of heresy, but perhaps the deeper threat was not heresy, but truth. The map, and the voyage it represented, may have been that truth. To erase the order was to erase that possibility. Yet fragments endured. They survived in the form of carvings that align with celestial coordinates, manuscripts filled with coded diagrams, and architectural patterns repeating across distant sites. These fragments are not accidental. They are traces of a hidden language, a language designed to survive centuries. They are breadcrumbs pointing toward a voyage erased from memory. Legends add another layer to the mystery. Across cultures untouched by European records, tales survive of visitors arriving from across the sea long before Columbus. In the Americas, there are traditions that speak of men in armor, strange ships, and knowledge brought from afar. Scholars often dismiss these tales as myth, but their persistence suggests something deeper. Could they be the last whispers of a Templar voyage? Could they be the echo of a secret kept for centuries? The implications are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the Atlantic, they would have rewritten the history of exploration. They would have been not just warriors of faith, but explorers of a forgotten world. Their mission would have transcended the Crusades, becoming a mission to guard a secret so profound it altered history itself. But what do they find? The answer is lost in the silence of the ages. Perhaps it was land, resources, relics, or knowledge so dangerous it had to be hidden. The destruction of the order, the burning of their archives, the erasure of their presence. All may have been part of a deliberate act to protect that secret. Following the traces left behind by the Templars is to walk a path through mystery. It is to enter a world where faith, secrecy, and destiny converge, where history dissolves into legend, where the map is not just a chart, but a testament to a mission that may have spanned centuries and oceans. The pursuit of such a map is no longer a matter of curiosity. It is a quest of destiny. For if such a voyage took place, it changes everything we think we know about exploration and the Knights Templar. The map, if it exists, is more than parchment and ink. It is a promise written in the language of faith and secrecy, a promise waiting to be found by those who can read it. To follow that promise is to follow the journey of the knights themselves, to step beyond history and into possibility, to enter a world where silence is as powerful as speech and faith as vital as discovery. Because some journeys are never complete, some secrets refuse to die. The map of the Knights Templar and the voyage it represents may still lie hidden. And if it is found, it will change the way we see history forever. The search goes on. The trail of a Knights Templar is not a single thread, but a tapestry of secrets woven across centuries. Their story is not found in one book or one chronicle, but in fragments, in stone, in scripture, in silence. And among those fragments lies a question that has haunted historians, scholars, and seekers alike. Did the Templars hold a map? A map that led them beyond the edges of the known world, to a land untouched by Europe for centuries? The traces are scattered, subtle, yet hauntingly persistent. Hidden carvings in ruined commanderies, strange alignments in Gothic cathedrals, margins of manuscripts filled with cryptic signs. These fragments are not anomalies. They are part of a pattern, a language encoded in the fabric of history itself. They hint at something extraordinary, a hidden map, encrypted in faith, stone, and time. For the Templars, a map was more than geography. It was a sacred object, a testament to knowledge, faith, and purpose. The order was unmatched in its mastery of navigation, astronomy, and geometry. They were scholars as much as warriors. Their reach extended across continents, giving them access to ancient wisdom preserved by Phoenicians, Greeks, and Arabs. They had the means to dream of voyages no one else could. If such a map existed, it would have been created with the utmost care and secrecy. Every line and symbol would have been deliberate, encrypted to protect the path it charted. The map would not have been stored in a single place, but hidden across the order, encrypted in architecture, manuscripts, and tradition. For the Templars, to reveal such a map would have been to betray the deepest oath they swore. The fall of the order in 1307 may have been more than a political purge. It may have been an act of suppression, an attempt to erase a knowledge too dangerous to survive. Philip IV of France accused the Templars of heresy, but perhaps behind those charges lay fear of what they guarded most fiercely. The map, and the voyage it represented, may have been that secret. To destroy the order was to destroy that knowledge. Yet, fragments endured, carvings in stone that align with celestial coordinates, manuscripts filled with coded diagrams, symbols repeating across distant sites. These are not random. They are remnants of a language designed to survive centuries, a language pointing toward a journey erased from memory. Legends add another layer to the mystery. Across continents untouched by European records, tales survive of strangers arriving from across the sea long before Columbus. In the Americas, traditions speak of men in armor, strange ships, and knowledge brought from afar. Many historians dismiss these as myth, yet their persistence suggests a deeper truth. Could these be the echoes of a Templar voyage? Could they be fragments of memory preserved despite centuries of erasure? The implications of such a journey are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the Atlantic, history must be rewritten. They would have been not only warriors of faith, but explorers of a forgotten world. Their mission would have transcended the Crusades, becoming a mission to protect something greater, a voyage that may have altered the course of history itself. The question remains, what did they find? The answer lies hidden in silence. Perhaps it was land, knowledge, treasures, or relics so powerful they had to be concealed for centuries. The destruction of the Order, the burning of their archives, the dismantling of their commanderies, all may have been part of a plan to protect that secret. Following the trail of the Templars is to walk through the corridors of mystery itself. It is to step into a world where faith and secrecy are inseparable, where the boundary between history and legend fades, where a map is not just a tool, but a testament to a mission that spans centuries, oceans, and silence. The pursuit of such a map is not simply a search for discovery. It is a quest for truth. For if such a voyage occurred, it alters everything we know about exploration and the Knights Templar. The map, if it exists, is more than parchment and ink. It is a promise written in the language of faith, secrecy, and destiny. A promise waiting to be found by those who can read its signs. To follow that promise is to follow the footsteps of the knights themselves, to step beyond history and into possibility, to enter a world where silence is as meaningful as speech and faith as powerful as knowledge. Because some journeys never end. Some secrets refuse to die. The map of the Knights Templar and the voyage it represents may still lie hidden, and to find it would change the way humanity sees its own past. The search continues. The deeper we follow the trail of the Knights Templar, the more it becomes clear. Their history is not just a story of battles and faith, but a story of secrets hidden in plain sight. Among those secrets lies one of the most tantalizing possibilities in history, a map. Not a map of kingdoms or borders, but a map to the unknown. A chart of a voyage so extraordinary it was erased from history. The evidence for this possibility is scattered, subtle, yet hauntingly persistent. Across Europe, in ruins of Templar commanderies, strange carvings appear. In cathedrals once under their control, architectural alignments match celestial charts. Margins of manuscripts hold coded symbols that resist translation. These fragments are not random. They are traces of something greater, a map hidden in faith, stone, and memory. For the Knights of the Temple, maps were sacred objects. They were not tools of commerce or conquest, but instruments of destiny. The order was unmatched in the art of navigation, astronomy, and geometry. They were both monks and scholars, warriors and guardians of knowledge. Their reach extended across continents, granting them access to ancient wisdom preserved by the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Arabs. They possessed the skill to imagine a voyage no one else could chart. If such a map existed, it would have been crafted with devotion and secrecy. Every line and symbol would have been deliberate, encrypted to protect its meaning. This map would not have been stored in one place, but hidden across the order, encrypted in architecture, in manuscripts, in ritual. To reveal, it would have been to betray the deepest oath of the Templars. The destruction of the order in 1307 may have been more than a political purge. It may have been an act to bury knowledge too dangerous to survive. Philip IV of France accused them of heresy, but perhaps behind those charges lay fear of what they protected most fiercely. The map, and the voyage it represented, may have been that secret. To destroy the order was to destroy that knowledge. Yet fragments endured, carvings aligning with the stars, manuscripts filled with coded diagrams, symbols repeating across sacred sites. These fragments are not random. They are remnants of a language designed to endure centuries. They point toward a journey erased from memory. Legends add a deeper layer to the mystery. Across cultures untouched by European records, stories survive of strangers arriving from across the sea long before Columbus. In the Americas, traditions speak of men in armor, strange ships, and knowledge brought from afar. Many historians dismiss these tales as myth, yet their persistence suggests a deeper truth. Could these be the echoes of a Templar voyage? Could they be whispers of a secret kept for centuries? The implications are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the ocean, history would need to be rewritten. They would have been more than warriors of faith. They would have been explorers of a hidden world. Their mission would have transcended the Crusades, becoming a mission to guard something greater, a voyage that may have changed the course of history itself. But what do they find? The answer is lost in the silence of the ages. Perhaps it was land, knowledge, relics, or resources so powerful they had to be concealed. The destruction of the Order, the burning of their archives, and the erasure of their presence may have been the final act of safeguarding that secret. Following the traces left by the Templars is to step into a labyrinth of mystery. It is to walk a path where faith, secrecy, and destiny converge, where the line between history and legend disappears, where a map is not merely a chart, but a testament to a mission that spans centuries and oceans. The pursuit of such a map is no longer simply a matter of curiosity. It is a matter of destiny. For if such a voyage took place, it changes everything we believe about exploration and the Knights Templar. The map, if it exists, is more than parchment and ink. It is a promise written in the language of faith and secrecy, a promise waiting to be discovered by those who can read its signs. To follow that promise is to follow the footsteps of the knights themselves, to step beyond history and into possibility, to enter a world where silence is as meaningful as speech and faith as powerful as knowledge. Because some journeys are never truly over. Some secrets refuse to vanish. The map of the Knights Templar and the voyage it represents may still be hidden somewhere, and finding it would not only rewrite history, but alter the way we understand our own past. The search is far from over. The mystery endures. The story of the Knights Templar is a story of shadows. It is a tale told not in triumphs, but in absence. In the ruins of commanderies, in the silence of erased archives, in whispers passed down through centuries. And within those shadows lies a possibility that shakes the foundations of history itself. A map. A map that could have guided the Templars to lands unknown. A voyage deliberately erased from the chronicles of mankind. The fragments of this possibility are scattered like pieces of a hidden language. Carvings hidden in stone walls. Strange alignments in Gothic cathedrals. Manuscripts written in cryptic symbols whose meaning still elude scholars. These fragments are not random. They are signs pointing to something extraordinary, a hidden map encrypted in faith and memory, waiting to be rediscovered. For the Knights of the Temple, maps were not mere tools. They were sacred objects, vessels of knowledge, faith, and destiny. The Order possessed unmatched mastery in astronomy, geometry, and navigation. They were warriors and scholars, monks and guardians. Their reach stretched across continents, granting them access to the ancient wisdom of the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Arabs. They inherited knowledge that could chart journeys no one else dared to dream. If such a map existed, it would have been created with deliberate care and secrecy. Every line, every symbol, every detail would have been placed with intent, encrypted to conceal its meaning from outsiders. The map would not have rested in a single place. It would have been hidden across the order, carved in stone, encrypted in manuscripts, embedded in ritual. To reveal, it would have been to break the most sacred oath of the Templars. The fall of the order in 1307 may not have been the end of the story, but the final act of a long silence. Philip IV of France accused them of heresy, but perhaps the deeper truth was the fear of what they guarded. The map, and the voyage it represented, may have been that truth. To destroy the order was to destroy the knowledge they protected. Yet the silence was incomplete. Fragments survived, carvings aligned with the stars, manuscripts filled with coded diagrams, symbols repeated across sacred sites. These are not accidental anomalies. They are remnants of a language designed to endure. They speak to us across centuries, pointing toward a journey erased but never forgotten. Legends add a layer of mystery that history cannot dismiss. Across cultures untouched by European records, there are stories of strangers arriving from beyond the sea, long before Columbus. In the Americas, oral traditions speak of men in armor, strange ships, and knowledge brought from afar. Many historians dismiss these as myth, but the persistence of these tales demands attention. Could they be the echoes of a Templar voyage? Could they be memories that survived centuries of erasure? The implications are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the Atlantic, history must be rewritten. They would have been not only warriors of faith, but explorers of a hidden world. Their mission would have transcended the Crusades, becoming something greater, the guarding of a journey that could alter the story of humanity itself. The question then arises, what do they find? The answer is lost in the silence of history. Perhaps land, knowledge, treasures, or relics so powerful they had to be hidden. The destruction of the order, the burning of their records, the erasure of their existence. All may have been acts of protection, preserving something too dangerous to reveal. To follow the trail of the Templars is to step into a labyrinth of mystery. It is to enter a world where faith, secrecy, and destiny converge, where the line between history and legend fades, where a map is not merely a guide, but a testament to a mission that spans centuries and oceans. The pursuit of such a map is no longer a matter of curiosity. It is a matter of destiny. For if such a voyage took place, it changes everything we believe about exploration, faith, and the Knights Templar themselves. The map, if it exists, is more than parchment and ink. It is a promise written in the language of faith and secrecy, a promise that waits for those who can read its signs. To follow that promise is to follow the journey of the Knights themselves, to step beyond history and into possibility, to enter a world where silence is as meaningful as speech and faith as powerful as discovery. Because some journeys never end, some secrets refuse to be buried. The map of the Knights Templar and the voyage it represents may still lie hidden, and finding it would not only rewrite history, but transform our understanding of ourselves. The search continues, and perhaps, one day, the silence will speak. Every great mystery carries within it a moment when the veil begins to lift. For the story of the Knights Templar, that moment has not yet arrived. Their history is a puzzle written in silence, built upon fragments scattered across centuries. And at the center of that puzzle lies a question that refuses to fade. Did they create a map? A map that led them to a world beyond the reach of their time. A voyage so extraordinary it was erased from memory? The signs are subtle but persistent. Carvings hidden in ruins. alignments in ancient cathedrals that match celestial charts, margins of medieval manuscripts filled with symbols no scholar has fully deciphered. These fragments are not mere coincidences. They are traces of a deeper truth, a hidden map encoded in faith, stone, and memory. For the Knights of the Temple, maps were not tools but sacred vessels. They were instruments of destiny, carrying knowledge beyond the reach of ordinary eyes. The Order's mastery of navigation, astronomy, and geometry was unparalleled. They were both monks and scholars, warriors and guardians. Their reach extended across continents, granting them access to the ancient wisdom of the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Arabs. They possessed the knowledge and the skill to dream of voyages no one else dared to attempt. If such a map existed, it would have been crafted with devotion and secrecy. Every line and symbol would have been deliberate, encrypted to conceal the truth it contained. The map would not have been kept in a single place. It would have been hidden across the Order, carved in stone, encrypted in manuscripts, woven into rituals. To reveal, it would have been to betray their most sacred oath. The destruction of the Order in 1307 was not merely the end of an institution. It was an attempt to silence a mission. Philip IV of France accused the Templars of heresy, but perhaps the deeper fear was not heresy, but the knowledge they possessed. The map, and the voyage it represented, may have been that secret. To destroy the Order was to bury the truth. Yet fragments survived, carvings aligning with stars, manuscripts filled with coded diagrams, symbols repeated across sacred sites. These remnants form a silent language, enduring across centuries, pointing toward a journey erased from the records of history. Legends add another layer to the mystery. Across cultures untouched by European chronicles, stories survive of strangers arriving from beyond the sea long before Columbus. In the Americas, oral traditions speak of men in armor, strange ships, and knowledge brought from afar. Scholars dismiss these tales as myth, yet their persistence suggests something deeper. Could these be echoes of a Templar voyage? Could they be whispers of a secret that survived centuries of erasure? The implications are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the Atlantic, history would need to be rewritten. They would have been not only warriors of faith, but explorers of a hidden world. Their mission would have transcended the Crusades, becoming something greater, a voyage that could alter humanity's understanding of itself. But what did they find? The answer is lost in silence. Perhaps it was land, knowledge, treasures, or relics so powerful they had to be hidden. The destruction of the Order, the burning of their archives, and the erasure of their presence may have been the final act of safeguarding that secret. To follow the path of the Templars is to walk into the heart of mystery. It is to enter a world where faith, secrecy, and destiny are intertwined, where the line between history and legend dissolves, where a map is not merely a tool, but a testament to a mission that spans centuries, oceans, and silence. The search for such a map is no longer a matter of curiosity. It is a matter of destiny. For if such a voyage took place, it changes everything we think we know about exploration and the Knights Templar. The map, if it exists, is more than parchment and ink. It is a promise written in the language of faith and secrecy, a promise that waits for those who can read its signs. To follow that promise is to follow the footsteps of the knights themselves, to step beyond history and into possibility, to enter a world where silence is as powerful as speech and faith as essential as knowledge. Because some journeys never end. Some secrets refuse to vanish. The map of the Knights Templar and the voyage it represents may still lie hidden. And if it is ever found, it will not simply rewrite history. It will change the way humanity sees itself. The silence may yet speak. The search continues. History is never complete. Every story leaves behind echoes, fragments of truth, whispers of what might have been. And for the Knights Templar, those echoes have become one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Beneath the stones of ruined commanderies, within the margins of forgotten manuscripts, behind the silence left by their destruction, there may lie the greatest secret of all, a map. A map to a voyage erased from history, a journey that could change everything we believe about the past. We are left with fragments, carvings whose meaning remains uncertain, alignments in sacred architecture that mirror celestial charts, symbols in manuscripts that resist translation. These are more than anomalies. They are part of a hidden language, a language written across centuries, pointing to a truth buried in silence. For the Knights of the Temple, maps were more than guides. They were sacred relics, vessels of knowledge and faith. The order was unmatched in their understanding of astronomy, geometry, and navigation. They were scholars as much as warriors, monks as much as explorers. Their reach extended beyond Europe, granting them access to knowledge preserved by the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Arabs. They had the tools to imagine journeys no one else could conceive. If such a map existed, it would have been crafted with devotion and secrecy. Every line, every mark, every symbol would have been placed with intention. It would have been hidden across the order, encrypted in stone, manuscript, and ritual. To reveal, it would have been to betray their deepest vow. The fall of the order in 1307 was not merely the collapse of an institution. It was an attempt to erase a mission. Philip IV of France accused them of heresy, but perhaps the deeper truth was the fear of what they guarded. The map, and the voyage it represented, may have been that truth. To destroy the order was to bury their secret forever. Yet fragments of that secret survived, carvings aligned with the heavens, manuscripts filled with coded diagrams, symbols repeated across distant sites. These remnants form a silent testimony, surviving across centuries. They hint at a journey erased from history, but not from memory. Legends add to the enigma. Across cultures untouched by European records, there are stories of strangers arriving from across the sea long before Columbus. In the Americas, oral traditions speak of armored men, strange ships, and knowledge brought from afar. Historians may dismiss these as myth, yet their persistence across centuries suggests something deeper. Could they be the faint echoes of a Templar voyage? Could they be whispers of a secret preserved despite time and erasure? The implications of such a voyage are staggering. If the Knights of the Temple crossed the Atlantic, history must be rewritten. They would have been not only warriors of faith, but explorers of a forgotten world. Their mission would have transcended the Crusades, becoming something greater, a mission to guard a journey that could alter the course of humanity itself. But what do they find? That answer is lost in silence. Perhaps it was land, knowledge, treasures, or relics so powerful they had to be hidden. The destruction of the order, the burning of their archives, the erasure of their presence, all may have been acts to preserve that secret. To follow the path of the Templars is to step into the heart of mystery. It is to enter a world where faith, secrecy, and destiny converge, where history and legend merge, where a map is not merely a tool, but a testament to a mission that spans centuries and oceans. The search for such a map is not merely a matter of curiosity. It is a matter of destiny. For if such a voyage took place, it changes everything we believe about exploration and the Knights Templar. The map, if it exists, is more than parchment and ink. It is a promise A promise written in the language of faith and secrecy. A promise waiting for those who can read its signs. To follow that promise is to follow the journey of the knights themselves. To step beyond history and into possibility. To enter a world where silence is as powerful as speech and faith as essential as knowledge. Because some journeys never end. Some secrets refuse to vanish. The map of the Knights Templar and the voyage it represents may still lie hidden. And if it is found, it will not merely rewrite history. It will alter the way humanity sees itself. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is not whether the Templars had a map. Perhaps it is whether we, too, are still searching for it. Because history is not just what happened. History is what we choose to uncover. The silence left behind by the Templars is not an ending. It is an invitation to search, to wonder, to believe, to imagine a journey lost to time, to believe that some secrets still wait to be found. And in that belief lies the true power of their legacy. The map may yet speak, and we must be ready to listen,